It was a long time ago. So my memory may be cheating a little on me here. But I was really, really lucky. I was blessed. My first feature film was Airplane. And so Julie and I, starred in that film together. And it was such it wasn't even just a hit. It was such a phenomenon that it broke box office records everywhere that it played all across the country. And just about every theater, from what I understand. And so from that point on, I would just get stacks of scripts. It just kept getting bigger and bigger as the years went by. And I would just pick a script. And so that was one that came by, and it was an ensemble piece with people like Jimmy Woods and Kenny McMillan and Alan King. And, I mean, all of these people were great. Candy, Jimmy Naughton. It was really... And Little Drew, who... I had directed a friend's play several years before that, and it was sort of for want of a more intelligent description, it was kind of an airplane version of Hamlet, which right there is strange. But I mean, instead of plotting ways to kill the king, Hamlet was sneaking up and giving him hot foots and putting kick me signs on his back. And it's very, very silly. My buddy Patrick Culleton wrote that. And I was directing it. And Johnny Barrymore, little John Barrymore, who was the grandson of John Barrymore, of the famous John Barrymore. It was John, Ethel, and Lionel. And Drew's half-brother. And he played Hamlet. So I can honestly say that I've directed John Barrymore as Hamlet. Anyway, Ildiko, who was Johnny's dad, it was his wife, one of his wives, Ildiko Jade, who was Drew's mom, she had a part in the beginning of the play. And so in rehearsal, I'd be directing, and I'd have to turn around every once in a while and say, "Shh, Drew, sit down, shh, shh." This was little tiny Drew. This is before E.T., just before E.T. So even though we didn't work together in the film, but we didn't have any scenes together. She wasn't in that sequence. But it was really fun. I mean, and Louis Teague was really wonderful. I'm trying to remember. There was something about Louis T. when they said it, and it was kind of like, oh, wow, that's cool. It might have been he'd worked on Woodstock. He had been in some capacity. I'm trying to remember if he was a cameraman or an editor or in some capacity. But he worked on Woodstock, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. Well, I mean, I knew Stephen King was a huge author and very popular. I was reading, biographies and historical books and things that were not mysteries. And, well, aside from Sherlock Holmes, which I loved. But, I mean, I wasn't really into just novels. And so I wasn't aware of his work except from my friends that were big fans of his until later. And then I started reading stuff afterwards, but I hadn't read it. Anyway, yeah, I kind of came in blind. But Louis was great because he let me, when a director lets you go, you don't feel like you're just being really, controlled to the point where you're just stifled. And he just let me go. But he was there to kind of guide me into areas where he wanted me to go. And so that was really terrific for me. Yeah, it was interesting. They had Ritter fans going, those huge airplane blades, and you can crank those up to 70 miles an hour. So they had those things going. They had Kenny McMillan, the amazing Kenny McMillan, trying to blow me off the ledge with a fire hose. So I was drenched for, part way through, and then for the rest of the way. And then the pigeon pecking at my foot. That trainer was amazing. He was remarkable. And he trained him to do that. And then they would just add blood on my sock, each scene as it got bigger and bigger, the more he pecked at it. I mean, you could feel it, but it wasn't anything. It was kind of interesting. But whenever you're all ready, you got makeup, wardrobe, hair, everything, and you're all ready, and okay, we're ready on set. So you go check everything, make sure that your hair's not out of place and your shirt's tucked in or whatever. And I remember it was in South Carolina, and it was so hot and muggy, and it was inside the soundstage. We were so tired because the heat is oppressive and just really wears you out. And I'd go outside, I'd open the door and just stand outside, and there was a rainstorm, and it was just blasting down. And I just stood there, and the rain hit me, and I just, it felt so good. They'd say, ready for you on the set, and I just turn around and get up on the ledge because that's the way I looked in the scene, so it didn't make any difference. So that was, I thought that was kind of funny. That was a makeup and wardrobe person's nightmare, and script supervisor's nightmare, but they didn't have to worry about it in this. I wasn't there for that, but I think Lewis said that they had, a longer lens. The longer lens you use, the more you can compress the scene. So they got way far back and used a long lens on it so that it looked like the cars going this way and the cars going this way were a lot closer to the cat. But really, there was a lot of space. So the guy could, work the cat in there, and it was safe, Yeah, you want to just, you want to go, pet them and play with them, but you can't really do that when you're working with animals because you have to keep their concentration. So, and I love animals, so I just want to go over there and snarfle them and play with them and stuff, but you got to give them their space. Well, the cat's very smart, and the trainer was very smart and just had that feel for it, knew what to do, how to train the cat, and when to cue him exactly right, everything. I mean, it was great. In the apartment, one of the scenes that I just laugh every time I even think about it is Kenny McMillan, who's a New York actor. He's gone now, God rest him, but he was just a really, really wonderful actor. But he's running, he sees me make it around the corner, and so he runs inside, and he's going to the closet to see what he's got in there to mess me up, distract me, whatever. And he runs across the waterbed. And as he runs across the waterbed, it's just so funny because it catches him. He almost goes backwards and forward. It's like, running on loose water. And he just made it into something very special. The scene sticks out in my mind. I never did ask him about that. At least I don't remember that I ever asked him about that. But I can't imagine that they didn't know it or realize it. Because he likes doing stuff like that. Lewis, the director, likes doing stuff like that. But there's the one thing when he said, you get everything. You get the girl, the gold watch, and everything. And that was the TV movie that I made with Pam Dauber, and which was great fun. I mean, how many people would love to be able to stop time, and do things and do little tricks and go to Vegas and make $1 billion. I mean, it would be fun. But anyway, that was a reference to that. He was soft-spoken. He wasn't a screamer on the set. And he was, you think of New Yorkers. He was born and raised in New York, I think. But you think of New Yorkers as being a tough, hey, get it, tough kind of energy about him. And he had a softer, easygoing kind of way about him that was that was really comfortable, really nice, sometimes a little unnerving. If you wonder, is the other shoe going to drop or something, which I suppose you could use to good, put to good use. But I really enjoyed working with him a whole lot. I thought it was great. And Jack Cardiff was the cinematographer, who is one of the great cinematographers, one of the great lighting cameramen, they call him, of all time. And this was my second film, I think, that I got to do with Jack. I did a film in London that my buddy wrote for me and then directed. And with Sir John Gielgud, I mean, wow, what a deal. And we had the amazing Jack Cardiff on that. But, and then for people that don't know, I mean, he's considered one of the great lighting cameramen of all time. They paint with light. He was a wonderful artist also. And he did the Black Narcissus, I think, he won the Academy Award for that. I think it was the next year that he did a film that people consider all over the world, the cameramen all over the world consider one of the greatest shot films, photograph films of all time, called The Red Shoes. And then he did a film that I said, "Oh, you did this film?" And he said, it was just you set the box and turn it on. And that was The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. And he did The Prince and the Showgirl with Olivier and Marilyn Monroe. The one shot, they had me up on the wall. They didn't have Fred, my stunt double, on this. They had me because they wanted to see my face, and you'd see that it was actually the actor. And it was most of the shots that you see, I'm up on that ledge about 12 feet in the air. That's all it is. And you're shooting down at me, and that set was built in a forced perspective with little models that were probably this big down on the floor moving. It was really great. I mean, it was really great. The art director, the production designer of that, just an absolute artist. And so that they also had a ledge that was probably 4 or 5 feet high, so they could get, me going along and just close-ups of that. But then they had a ledge that was about 30 feet high, way up on the wall in the studio. And the whole thing was painted like the side of the building. And that ledge was up there. And then belt high was a little slot in the wall. And there was a metal thing behind it so that it couldn't come through the slot with a wire. And they attached the wire to my belt buckle. And that was my safety. That was it. So if it pulled through, I think it was a metal track, so it wouldn't pull through. But if the wire snapped or my belt buckle gave loose or whatever, then that would be quite a fall. Well, what they normally have are big pads or airbags. Or what they started using, cardboard boxes. And they have brand new cardboard boxes, and they stack them. And then when you hit, they... So it works really well, and it's cheaper. And so they had all those boxes up there, and they had the shot of me, and they started on my face, and then they slowly pulled back with the wind blowing, and as they got way back, they said, "We got to move some of those boxes. Move some of them, get some more." Pretty soon they took all of them away, so it was just a concrete floor 30 feet below me. And then they had one shot way back with all the wind blowing, and it came all the way in to my face. And then another one starting my face and coming all the way back. So they had a choice of which way they wanted to go. My stunt double, Fred, I'd have him really shake me up and pound me on the shoulders, on the chest, like in football, when you're just ramming against each other to really shake you up. And that would get me all kind of rattled and get me, in the state of mind for what I wanted for like when I landed back after going all the way around and landed on the patio area. And he missed a little bit, and I had moved a little bit. It was one of those things where together it hit me just in the right spot where it cracked a rib. And I said, that's enough. Yeah, that's good enough. I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't want to hold up production. I've never held up production, and I didn't want to, start doing that. And Dino was very funny the way he said, "You must go, don't be silly, go." So I went to the dock on my lunch break, and it wasn't broken, but there was a little, like a hairline crack in it, and after you crack a rib is when it slowly starts to hurt over time. So when we got back, the very next thing that we shot after lunch was the scene where that big curved part of the building, and I go from the one room where Kenny is, I go from that window over to the next window. And then he opens the window and says, "What's the matter, Mr. Norris?" And I turn around to look at him, and meanwhile, Mike Starr opens this window and blows a trumpet at me, or the horn, or whatever it was. So that startles me, and I slide down the side of that thing with the curtain on me, and it's wrapped all around me, and I land on a ledge down below. That was the scene we started with right after lunch. So I have to lay on that ledge, and the edge of it cut right through, pressed right on the cracked rib. So it was like, Lewis is saying, "It's great. No, it's really great." And I said, "I hope so, because it hurts like hell." So that was my acting. But the Olympics were going on back here in L.A., and I remember the next day, I think was a Sunday. It was a day off, and I had a really neat little beach house condo that they had me staying in, and I had my feet up on the coffee table, and I was watching the TV, watching the Olympics, and the phone rang on the coffee table. So I lifted my legs up, to lean forward, and when I did, all of a sudden, the pain was unbelievable. I had to roll sideways, and I had to get over, and I didn't know it was going to feel that way until I suddenly got up, because I'd been just sitting there vegetating, for so long, watching that on my day off, just resting. I hadn't moved. So from that point on, it was pain. And I couldn't use my left arm very well at all. So, of course, the next scene that we're going to do is me climbing up across that huge logo on the building. And when I get out to the middle of it, then the thing lets loose. They put Freddie up there, and the whole thing falls down like that. And I told him, I said, if one hand comes loose, make sure that it's the left hand, because I can't hold on. My left hand is just, I can't use it. So you see one hand come off, and he's hanging like that. So then they put me back on it, and they hike it halfway up and boom, drop it again for the close-up. So I'm just like, oh, my God. And then I go across the thing and then go on that big electrical cable, and I start climbing across that. And then Freddie jumps on, the stunt double, and the long shot is the thing going pss, 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 and then the cable breaks loose, and he slams into the wall. Then they move in for the close-up, and I get on the cable, and they pull me way out and slam me into the wall so that it matches up. So all of this was just painful. And Lewis said, "Take the painkillers." And I said, No. I can't take the painkillers. I don't want it to interfere with my acting. I can't take the painkillers. So he said, "Take the painkillers." No. So I kept doing all this stuff. And then finally on the close-ups, when I'm going across that thing, and there was a platform underneath so they could take some of the weight off so that I could, And so finally I broke down and I took some of one of the pills, a painkiller. And of course it's, my best acting. And he was so fun. He was unpredictable. I think Lewis mentioned one time that he would never say his line the same way twice. He would always do it differently, which would throw you, but it kept you on your toes, which was really great. It made for a much more interesting and electric kind of a creative atmosphere. It was just, it was really, really fun, even though it was probably tough for continuity and for the script supervisor and maybe for the director. But there's one scene that always it drove me nuts when we were shooting it. Because it was when I grabbed the gun at the end and I shoot Jesse Duran in the back, the guy that played Albert, and then he's coming after me and I whack him across the head and he falls down back on the couch, and then I've got the gun on him and he slithers down onto the, sort of like a boneless human. He's just kind of slithered onto the floor between the couch and the coffee table, and then the Penthouse magazine that you were mentioning that had the ledge story, I'm sure that Louis Teague just said it there so that was the joke. Because if you saw it, you go, oh, that's the one that had the story about the ledge and quitters and all that. And but Kenny, with his interesting, wild choices, has a gun in his face. But he takes the Penthouse magazine and opens it and starts looking at all the pictures of the girls. And then when I say something that interests him, it's like there's a way out. I'll let you do one. What? Then that takes his interest away from the pictures. But when he started doing that, I thought, what are you doing? I got a gun in your face. Come on, pay attention to me. It was just aggravating. But it was very good. It made the scene more interesting, and that was Kenny McMillan, an interesting, creative actor. And, we lost a good one when we lost him. So it was fun. Seeing Jack Cardiff again and getting to work with him again and meeting all of those folks, Louis and Kenny and, all the people, Mike Starr, meeting him, all these people were so great, and it was such a joy working with them all. And Dino and Martha Schumacher, who became his wife, and they were just all great folks, and it was really, really an ensemble thing, and it was a lot of fun doing it. Even with the cracked rib, it was really fun doing it. And like Louis said, to be able to get somebody like Alan Silvestri before he hits it big, that was great. There was the scene with the big logo when I had the cracked rib and we do all that. That was apparently going to be so much more, but they had to cut $1 million out of the budget. They had to get it down to $9. I think it was a $10 million budget. Had to get it down to $9, something like that. So that was where they had to cut, because they had those shots, but they couldn't do all the stuff they wanted to do, which it would have probably intensified it all, and I thought it would have made it more fun. The other thing to me that was so fascinating about that film were those sets. Those sets just blew me away. The way they were, that forced perspective, the big Sykes, that they have for the backdrops that are basically a slide. When you in the old cameras, people don't even know that there used to be a thing called film, and you could take either, get prints, or you'd have slides. Well, the slides are little 35 millimeter slides, and they're only that big. This was a slide that was the size of a 3-story building that was 100 feet wide of the skyline. So then they put lights behind it, and it lights it up like it's on a projector or something. And that's how you had the skyline. So it was just amazing. For somebody in the process, watching the process of filmmaking, that was fascinating, watching all of that. And watching the sets for the little troll that is trying to suck out the breath of Drew at the end. That little troll was 4 feet tall. That chair was 12 feet tall. And the bird cage was, 10 feet tall or 15 feet tall. So that as the camera is going around, it's in this huge, like Alice in Wonderland kind of set where it's just massive, because the troll was a little short person. So it had to be, the same size for all that. It was pretty neat. It was all really, really neat. But I liked the process and the whole the whole process of making films, it fascinates me. So being involved in that kind of stuff, you're not just sitting on a green screen stage, and then they're going to stick in whatever they want to stick in. This was build it, and or paint it, construct it, and have little models going by, and I mean, it was just great. And I thought Lewis did a great job with all that, and all the people that they got, they were just amazing. Well, it's a wonderful memory. It's some work that was fun. My son likes it, so it's good by me.